Hi folks, HR Funk here. And for the second time in just a couple of months, I have a handgun with me from the Turkish company Girsan. This time around, it is the Girsan Regard, which as you can see bears a very strong resemblance to the Beretta 92 series of pistols. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a close-up look at the Girsan, and I'm going to be comparing it side by side with some Beretta pistols, and hopefully by the time the video is over, I'm going to be able to tell you just how good a quality copy, or clone if you will, the Girsan pistol is when it's compared to the Berettas. And this is going to be a short series of videos because today, as I said, is going to be the shop review. The next time you see this pistol, I'm going to be out on the range shooting it side by side with the Beretta pistols to see how well it performs. Now once again, this pistol was loaned to me by the folks from House of Pain Munitions, so they are helping me by helping supply some firearms that I might not otherwise have access to, and I'm looking forward to digging into the Girsan Regard and letting you know just how good a pistol I think it is. The Girsan Regard is distributed in the United States by European American Armory, and we're going to start our up-close look at the pistol in the way that you would bring it home from the store, which is to say in the box. And we'll take a look at what comes with it. And by the way, this is the Girsan Regard MC. In my research, it appears that there are some different variations of this basic pistol, so I'm going to be showing you specifically what you get with this one. As you can see, you get the pistol itself. And warning, historic complaint coming in 3, 2, 1. You only get one magazine with your pistol. Now, it is an 18-round magazine, which is cool, but it always annoys me, and I've talked about this in past videos. These do not cost that much. By the way, this is a Mecar Magazine, which you should be able to see, and make sure I have it. There we go. Now it's right side up. This is a Mecar manufactured magazine. I find them to be very high quality, pretty much anything made by Mecar, and there should be more than one that comes with your pistol. In any case, you get one 18-round magazine. You also get an owner's manual, and the manual itself, if I can keep from dropping it, is not bad. You have some actual photographs to help go along with the explanation so you can figure out how to do all the various things from firing to cleaning to loading to unloading and all that with your pistol. It comes with a lock, which of course is one of those things with my own pistols that virtually never comes out of the box, and I'll put this one back in there and probably never touch it again. The Girsan Regard MC also comes with a cleaning brush, which is a nice touch, but there is no attachment for cleaning patches or anything else. So you get part of a cleaning kit that comes with your pistol, but not an entire cleaning kit. And that's it for what comes in the box. Now looking at the Girsan Regard, it's easy to see the heritage that goes back to the Beretta pistols, and I'm under the impression that Girsan previously made parts for Beretta and lately has started to assemble clones of the Beretta pistol. But when you look at the pistol, it's not an exact duplicate of any particular Beretta pistol. Instead, there are sort of a blend of features that you'll see from various models of the Beretta 92 or M9 series, and there are a couple of things that are specific to the Girsan, and I'll talk about those as we go. So starting our review from the top and working our way down, you can see the 3-dot sight system used by the Girsan. And the rear sight, as you can see, is drift adjustable for windage in its dovetail, but just like the original M9, the front sight is integral to the slide. So there is no way to adjust the front sight for elevation, windage, or anything else. We see the open-top barrel design that harkens back not only to the Beretta pistols, but also the Walther P38. And this uses the exact same system for locking and unlocking the barrel that was used in the P38, which in my opinion gives it a very smooth functioning. When you fire this pistol, it seems like there is not nearly as much muzzle rise with this operating system as you get with your typical Browning tilting barrel system. So that's one of the things that I really like about the Beretta pistols, and I think I'm also going to like it with the Girsan. This particular version of the Girsan Regard has an FDE Cerakote finish that I think looks good, and it contrasts well with the black components, as you can see. The safety on the Girsan Regard is the same as the original Beretta, which is to say, when the pistol is cocked and you need to decock it, you rotate the safety decocker down and it safely decocks the pistol, but it does stay in the safety position, so the trigger is disengaged. You have to physically put the pistol back in the fire position in order to shoot it. Now, this is different, and there are some versions of the Girsan Regard that have what is known as the G-style safety, which means that when you apply the safety, it automatically springs back into position, but this is not one of them. So, as I said earlier in the video, there are different variations of this pistol. Make sure you check out the one you're looking at in your local gun store and get the features that you want if you decide to purchase a Girsan Regard. The pistol has rear cocking serrations, but no forward cocking serrations. These serrations are deep and fairly sharp, so you can grab a hold of that and get a good grasp on the pistol to cycle the slide if you need to. The pistol has solid plastic grips, as you see here, and the reason I said solid is because, again, some versions of this pistol have an open window right here, and there's also an opening in the side of the magazine to allow the shooter to keep an eye on how many rounds are left in the magazine. This particular version doesn't have that, as you see. Now, I'm not particularly upset about that, especially for not having the cutouts in the magazine, because I think that's a potential point of ingress for dirt and grit and what have you that might cause functioning problems for the magazine, and I'm just as happy having a solid magazine like this. Not that I think this is impervious to dirt and grit and what have you, but I think it's going to be less susceptible than the ones that have that big cutout opening in the side. Now, as long as I'm talking about the magazines, I'll throw this in now. As I said at the beginning of the video, there is only one magazine that comes with the pistol, but fortunately, Beretta magazines, which are plentiful, will fit and function in the Girsan Regard. So there's not going to be really a problem finding additional magazines. I still think there should be more than one that comes with it, but anything that is designed and intended for the Beretta 92 series will work with the Girsan Regard. In fact, when it comes to parts interchangeability, my understanding is that everything in the Girsan Regard will interchange with a Beretta 92 series pistol except the barrel and the locking block. And I suspect it's mainly the locking block. I'm not entirely sure that the barrel itself won't interchange, but if you're looking for grips or replacement mainsprings or what have you, again, anything that will function in a Beretta should work with the Girsan Regard. When it comes to barrels, as you can see, the Girsan Regard MC has the exact same barrel length as the Beretta M9, which when I measure it with my elementary school ruler comes out to about 4 3/4 inches. I believe Beretta calls this a 5-inch barrel, but it looks to be just a little shorter than that. And again, that's the exact same length as we get in the Girsan Regard. Now, as I said, the Girsan Regard seems to blend features from different Beretta pistols. As you see, there is a utility rail at the front of the slide, or excuse me, the front of the frame, that basically resembles that on the M9A3 or maybe the M9A1, although I believe the M9A1 only has a single slot. So again, we see something a little different here, or that combines some of the features we see on other Beretta pistols. So we see a trigger guard, and let me grab my M9 again. A trigger guard similar to the standard M9/92, but we also see an equipment rail that is similar to the M9A3. But the trigger guard on the M9A3, as you see, is different than the Regard. It's almost like somebody took these two pistols and put them in a blender and came up with this one. Unique, however, to the Regard is the front strap of the grip, which, as you can see, has finger grooves that are milled into it, and this is milled into the metal, so that has to be done when the pistol is manufactured. That's not something that's added with a grip or anything else. And that is different than both of my Beretta pistols, the M9A3 having the checkering on the front strap, and the standard M9 having the grooves on the front strap. So again, not only does the Regard blend features from the Beretta pistols, but it also has some specific unto itself. In contrast, the back strap of the Regard's grip is more or less identical to the M9, as you see there, and the M9A3, which is a little more difficult to see because of the grip that's installed, but you can see the grooved back strap there as well. So it seems like Girsan, when designing this pistol, sort of picked and chose which features of the Beretta pistols they wanted to include and which ones they wanted to keep unique unto their own pistols. Turning our attention to the magazine well of the Girsan, you can see slight beveling to help with the insertion of the magazine, which is more than the standard M9, which essentially has no beveling whatsoever for the magazine, but not as much as the beveling on the M9A3. So again, it seems like they picked a middle-of-the-road bevel for the magazine well and included that with the Regard. And you can also see that the Regard, as well as both Beretta pistols, has the lanyard loop at the bottom of the grip, which can come in handy, particularly if you're in some sort of rough and tumble environment and you might get separated from your pistol. If you can tie it to your body with a lanyard, that at least keeps it somewhere that you can get to it quickly, hopefully, if it does come out of your hand. Now, in my estimation, the Beretta M9 series has one of the poorest, if not the poorest, loaded chamber indicator that I have ever encountered on a pistol. And this has been emulated by other manufacturers, so the Beretta pistols aren't unique in this regard anymore. But the loaded chamber indicator consists of that tiny sliver of red paint on the side of the extractor right there. You can see it just barely. And as you can tell, in this light, it's almost invisible. If we were out in bright sunlight, it would be slightly more visible, but not much so. And of course, in any adverse lighting conditions, that's not going to be visible at all. Unfortunately, the Regard has essentially the exact same loaded chamber indicator, and if anything, it's a little bit worse because it seems like the sliver of red paint is even smaller than it is on the Beretta pistol. And it's slightly more visible on the M9A3, at least I thought so when I was looking at it before, but you can see just how difficult it is. So the lesson here is don't rely on the loaded chamber indicator. If you're not sure if your chamber is loaded, do a press check and make sure either it is loaded or it is unloaded, depending on your needs at the time. Now let's talk about triggers. When it comes to trigger pull, the M9 series has the standard double action first shot and then single action for successive shot trigger action. And when I try the double action on my M9, it is smooth, but it's long. It's somewhat heavy and it stacks a little bit at the end of the trigger pull. When I compare the Regard pistol, it is noticeably heavier than my M9. It's still smooth and it still stacks somewhat toward the end of the trigger pull. The M9A3 by far has the lightest double action pull of all three pistols, and I am going to measure these in just a moment. And I don't notice the stacking as much, but the M9A3 also has a different trigger spring or mainspring installed in it, and that's from the factory. That's nothing that I changed over, but when they build these, they put a slightly lighter mainspring in them as opposed to the standard M9. Single action triggers, on the other hand, on my standard M9, the single action trigger feels very good. And I'll bring this around so you can see the trigger pull. There is a take-up phase, as you see there. The trigger comes to a stop, and as you press Beyond that, there is slight movement. As you see, there is a little bit of over travel, but it's a fairly clean break. So not a bad single action pull on the standard M9. Switching to the Girsan, we see the same take up, the same stop, pretty much the same over travel, and the trigger feels about the same. I don't notice it being distinctly heavier or lighter than the M9. And again, the M9A3 is noticeably lighter than both of the other pistols, but it still has that over travel as you saw right there. So let's find out what the true story is with the trigger on the Girsan Regard. And I'm going to be using my Lyman trigger pull gauge. And the first pull is just under 12 pounds, 11 pounds, 15.2 ounces. I'm going to try that one more time with the double action pull. A little bit lighter that time, 11 pounds, 2.7 ounces. I'll try one more. And that was 11 pounds, 6 ounces. So between 11 and 12 pounds for the Girsan Regard on the double action pull. Now let's check the single action. Single action is 5 pounds, 4.4 ounces. Let's try another one. And that one was a little bit heavier, 5 pounds, 12.7 ounces. And one more. 5 pounds, 5.3 ounces. So around 5.5 pounds for the single action pull on the Regard. Now let's see how that compares to the Beretta pistols. Since the M9 doesn't have an equipment rail, I'm going to have to check this the old-fashioned way. First, the double action pull. And just as I noticed when I was pulling it myself, considerably lighter than the Girsan Regard. 10 pounds, 6.5 ounces for that first double action pull. Let's try it again. £10, 12.9 ounces for the second one. And we'll try this one more time. 10 pounds, 1.1 ounces for the last one on the double action pull. Let's try the single action on the M9. Now it is worth noting that this M9 has quite a few rounds through it, so this trigger has been cycled quite a few times. Single action pull was a lot closer, 5 pounds, 3.5 ounces. I'll try that just one more time. No reason to belabor this point. But this pistol is definitely broken in, whereas the Girsan Regard is brand new and has not been fired yet. 5 pounds, 4.4 ounces for the second single action pull with the M9. And just to be thorough, I'll check the M9A3. I know the double action pull is going to be noticeably, maybe I should say measurably lighter than the other two pistols, and it is 8 pounds, 10.0 ounces for that first double action pull. £8, 5.6 ounces for the second. £8, 10.2 ounces for the last one. So a couple of pounds lighter than the standard M9 and about 3 pounds lighter or so between this and the Girsan Regard for the double action pull. And checking the single action, it's also lighter, 4 pounds, 3.4 ounces. So about a pound lighter, maybe a little bit more than that. And the other two pistols, 4 pounds, 2.9 ounces. And one more time for the M9A3. 4 pounds, 0.6 ounces. When it comes to weight, with a magazine installed, the Girsan Regard MC is just over 34 ounces, 34.1 ounces on the official scale here. And if we loaded the Girsan Regard to its full capacity of 18 rounds in the magazine and 1 round in the chamber, that brings the weight up to 42.5 ounces. The Beretta M9 is coming in slightly lighter than the Girsan, probably due to the absence of that equipment rail. The M9 is weighing 32.6 ounces. And if we loaded the M9 to its full capacity of 15 rounds with 1 round in the chamber, again, it's slightly lighter at 39.7 ounces. Surprisingly, the M9A3 is slightly lighter than the Girsan Regard by just a few tenths of an ounce. And I expected this was going to be a little bit heavier, especially with the slightly longer barrel, but as we can see, it is just a little bit lighter, and I'm at a bit of a loss as to why that is. And if we loaded up the M9A3 to its full capacity of 17 rounds in the magazine and 1 round in the chamber, it's coming in at 41.4 ounces. And I know someone's going to ask me, so I'm just going to get this in now. The ammunition that I'm using for the weight test is 124 grain Spear Gold Dot, which should pretty closely approximate the weight of the 124 grain 9mm NATO load. So with the Beretta pistols having been on the market for so long and being so highly regarded, why would anyone consider the Girsan Regard? Well, I can think of a couple of reasons, basically having to do with price. And when we look at the features that you get with the Girsan Regard and we compare that to the standard Beretta M9, you see that there are several things that the Regard has: equipment rail, finger grooves, flat dark earth finish, etc., that you don't get with the M9. And the M9 in my area is selling for about $550 or $600 depending on exactly where you find it. And this pistol does have some of the features that you get with the M9A3, but the M9A3 in my area sells for about $1,000. Again, depending on where you find it and if it's on sale or what have you, but it is significantly more than the standard M9. Whereas the Girsan Regard sells for about $400 to $425, again, depending on where you find it. So you do have a significant savings with the Girsan Regard, especially when you consider the features that you get with this pistol. And that's going to do it for the up-close shop review of the Girsan Regard. As I said earlier in the video, the next time you see this pistol, it's going to be out on the range and we'll do some shooting. For now, if you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off anything you purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember, warbirdbunker.com is making t-shirts for the channel. If you go to warbirdbunker.com, you can find my t-shirts there, as well as all of Nathan's other firearms and patriotic themed gear. And if you use my discount code at warbirdbunker.com, which is HRFunk4U, that'll save you 10% off your purchase from warbirdbunker.com. And once again, House of Pain Munitions supplied this pistol for the review today. If you go to House of Pain and purchase anything there, you can use my discount code, which is HRFunk10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from House of Pain Munitions. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.